I know it sounds like quite a stretch to compare Britney Spears to Elphaba from Wicked, but this is a video that I've been wanting to make regarding Britney Spears. And now that the movie has premiered and I have become familiar with the themes of the movie, I feel that the question with which the story begins encapsulates the point I want to make about Britney Spears. At the beginning of the movie Wicked, Glenda, the Good Witch, asks the following question.
Are people born wicked, or do they have wickedness thrust upon them?
Are people born wicked, or is wickedness thrust upon them? And when you think of Britney Spears and the long saga of her life, starting with her impressive, incredible, unprecedented early career, to the triumphs of getting all the way to the top of the pop world, to her rapid and quite unexpected descent into what seems like mental illness, to now her post-career kind of bizarre life that she's living now, I wonder, where did it all go wrong? Was she destined for this, or was this thrust upon her? The idea for this video came about one day when I was looking at an interview, an old interview that Britney gave many years ago. And I was looking at this interview and my heart kind of got sad when I was watching the old Britney Spears.
You look amazing.
Well, thank you. I like your suit.
Thank you. I like
amazing.
your suit.
Baby blue is my favorite color. Did you know that?
I didn't. Tell me about this outfit.
Oh, this is
look
just what
good.
I'm wearing to go eat lunch. This isn't in the video. This is just fun.
20 years and you signed with Jive Records.
I know, I'm
you
so
believe
old.
that?
Jesus. Yeah, I know. It's 20 years. Baby One More Time is like 15 years old.
Do they like mom's music?
They love mom's music.
Yeah. They're not like, Mom, don't sing, don't sing.
No, they think my music is cool.
The old, spunky, happy, funny Britney Spears giving this interview. And I thought to myself, gosh, I miss the old Britney, the Britney before the conservatorship, the Britney before her mind just turned on her. But then I looked at the date of the interview and I realized this was Britney while she was under conservatorship. This was Britney a good 8 years into her conservatorship. And I thought, but you mean to tell me that after her mental health problems, after she had this whole thing, the shaving of the head and the acting so bizarre, there was still that happy-go-lucky, funny Britney? She was still in there? And when you compare this Britney to the Britney of today, the freed Britney that is now not under any conservatorship, she is free indeed, but you look at her and you look at her behavior, how she is literally spinning out of control. You're tempted to tell yourself, maybe the conservatorship wasn't so bad. Maybe that's the thing that saved her, that was going to preserve her. And look at her now that she's finally free. Maybe she shouldn't be free. Maybe somebody should be in charge of her so that we can get the old Britney back. But here's the truth. It's clear that this Britney is better than this Britney. But you know which Britney was even better? That Britney. The full of life, the spunky, the girl that has that joy of living. What happened to that girl? Did her brain take her from us? Or is there a more sinister answer to that question? A couple months ago, I made a video talking about how Christina Aguilera and Lindsay Lohan have been defying the aging process and we need to know what's going on. And in that video, I made it very clear, I gave a disclaimer that in the Britney versus Christina whole saga, I was and still am a proud member of Team Christina. I was talking about how much I love Christina, how much I love the fact that she has the best talent out of the two, and that the only reason why people didn't like her more is because Britney was cuter. She had a cuter body. She just had that, that look that everybody wanted to have. But the truth is, it was more than that. Britney was the favorite one out of the two pop princesses because she had something that Christina didn't have. She had the personality. Britney was joyful and bubbly and friendly and open. Christina was a lot more guarded. And if you know about Christina's early life, you would understand why she was like that. But that doesn't matter, because the fact is, when Britney was on stage, she made you feel like you and her could be best friends. She just had that personality that made everybody want to be around her. She just seemed so approachable and friendly and very trusting. And that Britney went away from the moment she had the first signs that something was wrong. But let's go back. Let's go back to how we got here. Britney started to hit it big around 98, 99. That's when we became familiar with her. But she really peaked in the early 2000s. Between 2000, 2003, Britney was everywhere. She was the biggest pop star in the world. And by some metrics, she was the biggest pop star in her category ever. Nobody had ever hit it that big as a single female pop act. And other than Taylor Swift and Beyonce, we really haven't seen anything even close to that since. During this time also, tabloid culture had peaked. Paparazzi were going crazy here in Los Angeles. I mean, if you would go to certain parts of Los Angeles during the day, you would see them in clusters, the paparazzi. You would see their cars parked to the side of the road. You knew somebody big was either inside of a store or a restaurant. And you just saw them like swarms of bees with their cameras just everywhere. The editors of these magazines were paying top dollar for just pictures of celebrities doing the most normal things. It was the whole "they're just like us" era. And these magazines were making so much money that they were paying top dollar for shots of celebrities. We're talking six figures. So as you can imagine, anybody from professional photographers to the most amateur person wanted to get in on the action. If you could make enough money to pay for your kids' education from just one photo, of course you're gonna grab a camera, move to Los Angeles, and see if you get lucky that day. This was before social media, where celebrities could control their own narrative, where they could put out their own photos of themselves doing the most ordinary things inside of their own homes, showing off their cars. This was before that time. So if you wanted to know how celebrities were living, you had to rely on the tabloids and the gossip blogs online that were also hitting their stride during this time. So it was an exciting time for these industries, but it was a very dangerous, very nerve-wracking time for celebrities who lived here. And unfortunately for Britney, she was in the midst of the worst perfect storm that you could imagine. She was the biggest star in the world. She lived in Los Angeles. She liked being out and about. And she was in the middle of a time where there was a bounty on her head and everybody wanted a piece of her. And I believe that because she was so young and unequipped to deal with all of this attention, Britney really craved some kind of stability in her life, something that would anchor her to reality, because her life was kind of a circus and it really wasn't based on real life. Normal people didn't have to go through what she was going through. So I think she really was craving the normalcy of a regular life. And because she couldn't claim that, as Dave Chappelle once said, once you become famous, you can't become unfamous. You either stay famous or you become infamous. And so Britney kind of understood that she could never remove this scarlet letter from off of her. She is a celebrity. She is famous. She will always be famous. People will always know who she is. So I think that in her mind, she thought, okay, the best thing that I can do to kind of anchor myself is to do something normal, like get married and start a family. And I think that that was the impetus that made her do this impromptu thing of getting married to her childhood friend, Jason Alexander, in January of 2004. This was the famous or infamous 55-hour wedding where she and Jason went to Las Vegas. They got married. Once her parents and her team found out that she got married to this guy without a prenup, They sprang into action, grabbed her and said, "You cannot be married to this guy," and they forced her to get an annulment. I believe that this was the first time when Britney attempted to do something normal for herself, and she found herself not being able to even be in control of her own life. And this was a very kind of infuriating and jarring experience for her. And it marked her in a way that I think that she decided, the next time I do this, nobody is going to tell me how to do this. I'm going to do it my own way. So less than a year later, just a few months later, she met Kevin Federline, who was a backup dancer that she just met. And this time she was determined that she was going to marry him and nobody was going to stop her. They got married in October of that year, 2004. And less than a year later, she gave birth to her first child, Sean Preston, in September of 2005. It all happened so quickly, but I believe that Britney was just so desperate to have a normal life that she said, "This is my ticket out of this hellhole of fame that is out of control. At least this is something I can control. Get married and start my family." Well, less than a year after she gave birth to her first child, she gave birth to the second one. It's like they didn't really take the recommended break between having a baby and, continue in their family building activities. It happened very quickly. Sean Preston was born in September 14th of 2005, and on September 12th of 2006, Jaden James, her second child, was born. And this is where things, I believe, started to spiral out of control. Because less than 2 months after she gave birth to her second child, she filed for divorce from Kevin. Think about where Britney's life was at this moment. It is clear that her and Kevin were having problems, because if 2 months after giving birth she's filing for divorce, things had kind of fallen off the rail. And it was around this time that Kevin was trying to get his non-existent rap career off the ground. And so he was traveling, trying to promote some kind of a single that he released. He was clearly capitalizing of his relationship with Britney to kind of get into the spotlight, which is something that is very clear he wanted from the very beginning. And coming upon that realization for Britney must have been really difficult, because she was thinking, here I am trying to bring normalcy into my life by getting married, starting a family, and I just want this little family to be at home waiting for me, to be a contrast to the craziness that was happening outside of the doors of our home. And here's my husband leaning into the craziness of fame. So now I'm left home with these two babies, trying to hold on to my sanity. This was a really difficult time for Britney. Add to that the fact that the paparazzi is going crazy. She's being looked at very closely by the paparazzi. Her mothering skills are being judged by the paparazzi, and we're going to talk about that a little later. And she had 2 back-to-back babies. There were a couple of times during this time when you saw Britney kind of breaking down and falling apart in public. And you can't help but to conclude that having one newborn baby at home is very, very difficult. But having 2 babies back-to-back is not only taxing on the body, but emotionally, Britney must have been a wreck. I have no doubt that she was experiencing postpartum depression to the nth degree. Because when your hormones are out of whack after giving birth to your first child, and then you get pregnant right away, right after that, and your hormones are out of whack again, and then you give birth to the second one, but you have another little baby that's pulling on you, and you have a newborn, and you're trying to breastfeed, and your husband is nowhere to be found because he's trying to be a celebrity. This was a turbulent time for Britney's mental health. And because she wasn't getting the help that she needed, she started to act out. Right after she gave birth to Jaden James, she started going out. She started partying. That's when she was hanging out with Paris Hilton and Lindsay Lohan. And she was looking a mess. She was drinking a lot. There were court-backed reports that saying that she was at this point taking recreational drugs. Her mental health is in the dumps. She's going through all of this. She's going through a divorce. She has 2 babies at home. She was self-medicating to kind of cope with the pain and the confusion and the sadness. But of course, this is causing problems because you cannot be out here having a good time when you have two babies at home and your husband isn't home because you already kicked him out of the house. So she was under a lot of criticism. We started seeing her early on as a mother making little mistakes. She was seen driving away with the baby on her lap. You would see her sometimes driving with the baby in the back seat, in his little seat that wasn't strapped correctly because he slumped to the side. Paparazzi's following her. So any little mistake that she's making as a new mom is being recorded for the world to see, and she's being called a bad mother. So this little family that Britney started to kind of bring normalcy into her life is now seemingly adding more to the chaos of her life. And at some point, Britney just kind of broke. In 2007, I believe it was in February, where she famously shaved her head. And this was a moment that marked an instance in us looking at Britney Spears from being this shiny, perfect little thing that she was for us, to being this weird, damaged, non-functioning thing that the public now gets to officially turn on. Because as long as she's cute and sexy and is doing everything that the public wants to see, the public can forgive some things. And when Britney shaved her head, even though it's clear that she was having a mental breakdown, it kind of told the public, okay, you're not going to be cute for us. We're not going to protect you anymore. A couple days after she shaved her head, she had an incident with the paparazzi where she attacked a van with paps inside with an umbrella. And that image of Britney hitting the car with the umbrella cemented in the public's mind the fact that Britney was not okay. She was unhinged. What is not always shown in that incident is that Britney was provoked. And the backstory is that that night, Britney had gone over to Kevin's house. He had the children, and she wanted to go see them. But because it wasn't her day to see the children, Kevin didn't even let her in the house. And he said, no, you're not coming. You're not going to see the kids. It's not your turn. Britney left Kevin's house already in distress. Her and her cousin were in the car, and the paparazzi surrounded her car and started taking pictures of her with her shaved head, sitting in there looking sad and miserable. They were provoking her. They put the camera inches away from her face. And when she exploded in anger, the public say, oh, she's crazy, without knowing that she was pushed to that point. But it doesn't matter what happened before, because the paps only showed their version of the events. And that's what the public believed. And as far as why she did this, why she shaved her head, I had seen a report somewhere that Britney had been having an argument with Kevin because Kevin was very unhappy of the lifestyle that she was living. She was taking drugs, she was drinking, and he was telling her, I'm going to have you drug tested. And she was like, well, I'll never give you my blood. I'm never going to let them take my blood. And Kevin must have said something to her like, well, all they have to do is take a hair strand out of your head, and they can test that hair strand and see if you've been taking drugs. And that Britney then decided to shave her head. I don't know if that's true. She's actually been on the record to say that she shaved her head because she just felt like everybody was pulling on her and touching her, and she didn't want to feel like people were touching her, so she shaved her head. I don't see how that has anything to do with that. It was probably a sensory thing, feeling her hair on, touching her face and on her back. She was overstimulated. I really don't know. Clearly, to me, it seems like she was just having a mental breakdown. And who hasn't been there? How many women haven't cut off their hair or shaved their head in a moment of desperation, to wanting to change everything about them? We are so associated with our hair. Our hair is so much a part of our identity that a lot of times when a woman wants to just change her life, she changes her hair. She changes the color, the style, she cuts it. She just wants to change this thing that is such a part of her identity, to change something about her life. Whatever the case may be, this was a breaking point, and by 2008, she had lost custody of her children. This was the pivotal moment that changed everything, because I think when her family was finally stripped from her, first, the marriage fell apart, her husband left, and then her children, the most important part of that family equation, were ripped from her. there was some kind of a psychotic break where she no longer felt that she was a person. It's one thing when you go on an impromptu wedding in Las Vegas and you get married to your childhood friend you haven't seen in a long time, and people force you to annul that marriage. That's one thing. But when you take the time to build a family organically and you literally give birth to children, you grow them in your body and they get taken from you, how do you ever feel like you are a human being with full agency of your life? You don't. It's very difficult to see yourself that way. And I believe that Britney Spears had a moment of fragility that could have gone one way or another. And the decisions her family made after that determined how the rest of her life would go and who Britney Spears would be for the rest of her life. And unfortunately, I believe that it was for the worse. In February of 2008, Britney Spears was put under conservatorship by her father. And from 2008 until 2021, is that correctly? Yes, until November of 2021, Britney Spears was not a person who was in charge of herself. Her father and the people he put around her became her proxy, the people who decided whether she left the house, took her medication, when she ate, when she went to sleep, how much money she was able to have access to, when her children were allowed to be around her, whether she went on tour, whether she recorded music. Everything about her life was decided by other people because they managed to convince a judge in court that she was incapable of making those decisions for herself. Now, you might argue, as I showed in the beginning of the video, during that time that she was under conservatorship, she seemed okay. She was giving interviews, she was going on tour, she was recording, she participated in America Has Talent. Everybody would conclude that the conservatorship was pretty good for her because she was functioning. They were helping her. But when you help to solve the problem you created, are you really helping? The conservatorship had an effect on her that took its toll that we haven't seen until later on. When you tell somebody you're not a person, you are not in charge of your life, it creates a kind of disassociation in your brain. You become, to quote Shawshank Redemption, the movie, you become institutionalized. You become somebody who can only function kind of under the tutelage and the guidance and the enforcement of somebody who's in charge of you. Once you are left to your own devices, you're kind of lost. You don't really know what to do because you have been told what to do so much and in a medicated state that when those controls are removed from around you, it seems like you can't function on your own. But it's not you who can't function on your own. It's that you were controlled so much that now the prophecy becomes a reality. You've been told for so long you can't do this on your own that it becomes a reality. It is thrust upon you. So the Britney that we see today is the Britney that was convinced that she cannot be okay on her own. When Britney had her psychotic break in 2008, late 2007, early 2008, Britney was going through postpartum depression. She was going through regular depression, the end of her marriage. She was going through the anxiety that comes from living in a fishbowl when you're surrounded by paparazzi and every little mistake you make is amplified for the world to see, to point fingers and to judge you. What Britney was going through was a normal response to abnormal circumstances. She didn't need to be under conservatorship. She didn't need to be put under powerful medications. I believe that when she testified in the court case, when she was finally freed from the conservatorship, she testified that in 2018, because she refused to go on tour because she was tired or she just didn't want to do this anymore, she was forcefully put in an institution under lock and key, and she was given lithium. And if you know anything about lithium, you know that very few things can mess you up mentally than the improper administration of lithium. And one of the side effects of lithium is cognitive impairment. What we are seeing today, the Britney of today that is just spinning and spinning and spinning, is somebody who suffered cognitive impairment under, according to her, improperly administered lithium. The conservatorship created the problem that necessitates the help of a conservatorship. The people around her all enriched themselves with her money because they had access to her bank accounts. So they had, in my opinion, this is all my opinion, don't come for me. This is all my opinion based on what Britney said, based on all the reports. Everybody who was participating in the conservatorship benefited from her staying on it for as long as she could. Britney didn't need heavy medication. She needed to be taken somewhere to rest, to get some counseling, to get some help with the children, to maybe get her hormones in balance, to take her away from all the noise, the paparazzi, the intrusion. She needed to live a normal life. And by that time, Britney had made enough money that she didn't need to continue working. She should have taken about 2 years away from the public, go somewhere peaceful, somewhere in the countryside, maybe next to a body of water, where she could be at peace with her children, with a staff of people supporting her, getting counseling, maybe doing some meditation. She needed for somebody to put their arms around her and say, what you're feeling is normal. What you're going through is expected. You're not crazy. The world around you went crazy. And so we've removed you from that world so that you can heal, get better, be a good mom to your kids, and get back to that career if you want to do that. You've already made all the money in the world. You can retire now. You can live a semi-normal life away from the public if you want to. But if you go back there, before you can go back into the public, we're going to make sure that you are okay. That's what she needed. Britney didn't need lithium. She needed a hug. She needed a community that had her best interests at heart. And that's not what she got. Instead, she was told that she was wicked. She was told that she was crazy. And they convinced her of that. And when the court finally released her from the grip of the people who did not have her best interests at heart, what we're seeing is a girl that was convinced that she's crazy. She doesn't have the support that she needs. It doesn't seem. She had wickedness thrust upon her. I don't think it's too late for her. I think there's still hope. Maybe there are some therapies that she can go on that can help restore most of what was taken from her. But I do know that she needs support. She needs help. Will she be able to get the right kind of help from people who are not going to take advantage of her? I don't know. But please, when you see Britney acting like this, don't call her crazy. She just needs support. She needs her children around her. So if you're watching this video and you care about her, just take a couple seconds to just think about her, think about a lot of light surrounding her, and send love to her. Britney, just like anybody else, deserves a good life, and we wish her the best. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like, leave a comment, tell me what you think. Please subscribe to my channel. I would love to see you join us here. It's a small channel, but we're growing little by little. I like to talk about social media and things happening in pop culture and in the news. Please share this video if you enjoyed it. Hopefully, I will see you in the next one.